When we first meet Leon in RE2, he's a rookie cop having a very bad day at work. He took his job seriously, trying hard to act like a proper cop and take control of the situation, and trying to help everyone he meets along the way. And he had nerves of steel while he did it all. Look at him be completely unfazed as he watches Kendo be devoured by a horde of zombies right before his eyes. Nerves of steel. Then again, some things never change. In RE2, Leon acts like a cop and tries to take charge of the other survivors. But despite his authority figure tendencies and his lack of fear, his inexperience occasionally bleeds through. We see him flustered here and there, and he quickly loses his patience when people don't cooperate with him.
Let me guess. You must be Ben, right? Get up, now! What was that all about? Running off like that was reckless and stupid!
In line with that, probably his most pronounced character trait in the original RE2 was that women don't listen to him. Leon strongly tries to project authority throughout the game, but it largely falls on deaf ears despite his obvious survival skills.
Those zombies are everywhere! Not to mention that thing that got Ben.
I was there, Leon. I know.
Ada, wait! What? Ada, wait! Ada, wait! Hey!
We found a way to the sewer. Follow us later.
Claire! Claire! Wait! Man, why doesn't anyone ever listen to me? Is it just me, or does everybody always ignore what I say?
This, ironically, is one of his most consistent traits. Not specifically that, but in the more general sense, he's the hero that Capcom likes to humble despite his obvious skills. Chris bulges his muscles and kills supervillains, but Leon gets captured, infected, used, thrown around, put in over his head. And that's Leon in RE2, a cop full of courage, authoritarian bluster, inexperience, and still a deep-seated desire to help at his core. When we next see Leon in RE4, he is a wisecracking 80s action hero. This has never really made any sense. Granted, his experience and training would make him more confident, sure, but he had never shown any kind of humor in RE2, nor did he act anything like this. You can pretty easily imagine how a cop like Leon would mature with experience, and this isn't really it.
Can't remember the name, huh? A senior moment, perhaps.
Just the same, we'll see them use that theme often with Leon. They take his rookie status and then harden him into a real professional after the Raccoon City incident. We next see Leon in a movie. Remember the CGI movies? We see Leon in the very first one, Degeneration, where we're greeted by a third brand new Leon. A serious, stoic, utterly joyless Leon who's like a walking Terminator and little else. You can kinda see this as a different spin on the one-time rookie, now a hardened pro trend, but it overtly contradicts the one we just saw in RE4. The shift into this Leon is never explained whatsoever, but he does serve as sort of a prototype of RE6's Leon, who follows next. But we'll loop around to that. We just outlined 3 whole Leons, so let's switch over to the remake continuity and try to make a cohesive whole out of all these Leons. The remakes try to smooth over this shift in personality, and while the effort isn't completely airtight, it makes him a lot more cohesive. In the remake of RE2, his personality is similar to the original, but still a good bit different. This Leon is a puppy dog, eager to help, rather than the old Leon who's eager to help by establishing his authority. They both want to help, but have different attitudes about it that reflect their personalities. The remake puts a lot more emphasis on him having a heroic personality. Rather than fixated with trying to project a sense of authority, instead he has almost a childlike naivete and idealism of making a difference through his job and his actions. In the original RE2, he's just reporting to work. When he meets a zombie, he goes to the RPD to see what's going on, but he's also looking for safety, as he's already in the center of town being pursued by zombies. Once he sees that RPD has fallen, his next task is just to get the hell out.
There's no reason for us to stay any longer than necessary. Let's split up, look for any survivors, and get out of here.
Which is obviously pretty understandable, frankly. But in the remake, Leon is outright told to stay away, but he feels duty-bound to go in anyway. Upon seeing the zombies and realizing why he was told to stay away, he keeps on going anyway. despite the fact that in this version he was safely outside of town and could have just gone back the way he came. And then when he first meets Martin in the destroyed RPD, rather than being eager to get out, he laments not being there sooner.
Yeah, well, I was supposed to start last week, and I got a call to stay away. I wish I'd come here sooner.
You're here now, Leon. That's all that matters.
When he meets Ada, who presents as an FBI agent, he's eager to jump in even deeper to catch the people who caused it. By the end of his campaign, he learns that the city was corrupt, and the FBI agent he looked up to was only a fake.
Come on. Sewers are run by the city. How could they have a facility without the authorities knowing?
Welcome to corporate America.
His desire to be a hero and take down the ones responsible for the outbreak ended with him realizing he was a fool. He doesn't punish any villains or save anyone. He jumps on the train alone, leaving the city having accomplished nothing, and without having changed a single thing. Leon, so zealous in his sense of duty and desire to help, in the end couldn't help anyone. The other survivors, Claire and Sherry, were already on the train out of town without him. They saved themselves. He did meet several survivors in his escape from the city, and he couldn't save any of them. He endured that nightmare, and he may as well have never left the house that day. We find out that this haunts Leon throughout the rest of his life, and it's essential to him transforming into the man we see in future games. Although he seems kind of fine with it at the time, and even finishes the game in good spirits, he also probably did save both the others by killing Birkin at the end, actually. Plus the fact that Ada also survived, and he apparently suspected as much too, so. But it's Resident Evil, we have to work with what we got. Anyway, another difference is that in the remake of RE2, Leon is more gentle and more expressive, and we do see a bit of his sillier side, such as that weird flirty scene with Claire, that gives a hint at the sense of humor we see him develop later on. In the original game, he's pretty humorless, but the remake definitely sets him up as somebody who's capable of a one-liner.
Chew on that, you overgrown son of a bitch.
I do wish they'd build a little bit more in his sense of humor, considering it all, but there's at least a hint of it.
Hope I don't have to write a report on this.
When we see him again in the remake of 4, he's been through the ringer. To protect Sherry, he was forced to join the government as an agent and driven through intense training. As a result, he's lost a lot of faith in the systems of authority he was once so zealous about. He's endured even more hardships and is still guilting himself for being unable to make a difference.
This time, it can be different. It has to.
His flirty, cutesy sense of humor from RE2 has morphed into a more pronounced, sardonic humor that helps him cope with his gauntlet of personal issues. What's more, he unexpectedly finds himself in an even worse situation than Raccoon City. Not only is he quickly infected by a parasite, he's also trapped in a village full of intelligent zombie-like creatures, subject to increasingly long odds at every turn. The enemies seem to have no shortage of new traps and monsters that could crush him in an instant, and it's a miracle he survives any one of them. Even worse, he encounters a fellow agent, the man who trained him, now fighting against him, a dark mirror of what he could become, now dedicated to killing him. All the while counting down the hours until he becomes one of them. It becomes clear early on, Leon doesn't even think he's going to make it out alive this time. But he keeps moving. He comforts Ashley to keep her moving too, even though he's just as uncertain as she is, and she returns the favor.
You hurt?
I'm good, thanks. Are you okay?
Yeah.
Be careful.
And as the game progresses, we see more of the spark come back to Leon, even though the dark mood never evaporates. Until eventually, he manages to save Ashley. This time, it was different, and in his eyes, he takes a step towards absolution. His character in this game definitely serves as a half-step between the rookie Leon and the professional Terminator Leon. He's clearly far stronger, and his training sees him through, but he's also a tired mess of a person for the bulk of it, and ironically feels even more vulnerable than he ever did in RE2. Before we loop back to RE6, let's go back to that third Leon from Degeneration. With the remake continuity in mind, he still doesn't really make any sense. He kinda makes less sense now, actually, because RE4 kind of serves as Leon's redemption to himself. But that's okay, it's a spin-off and it's merely a preview of what Leon will be like in RE6 anyway. And thus, our next real stop is RE6, the bridge point between the continuities. This Leon is definitely the weak point in the continuity, so forgive me for struggling a little bit to make a square crank fit in a hexagonal hole. This Leon is still a lame Leon, but with the backstory of 2-make and 4-make, he's now made plausible enough. He's a lot more stoic and serious than 4, and a bit more than in Requiem, but he's still full of one-liners and stupid jokes, just significantly worse ones than usual.
I don't suppose I think I can fly a plane, do you?
We saw bits of that stoic personality in RE4, so while it's laid on a bit too thick here, it's not completely out of left field, especially considering the very dark and very personal story for Leon. He's not really in the best mood. It also continues a frequent theme. Leon, who previously made being an authority figure his whole personality, is now yet again betrayed by those in charge, and this is the first time that he has to go rogue to set things right. Leon has also gotten consistently showier and more fashionable as he gets older and more confident, and this continues to evolve here in RE6 with a pretty damn stylish Leon. Unfortunately, there's just not that much to say about him besides that. He feels like a fairly bad attempt to depict exactly what Requiem does later. Requiem feels like someone saw RE6 Leon, said, no, do it like this, and then scooted the RE6 writer out of the room. And that almost brings us to the present, Requiem. But first, a very final and very quick detour over to the CGI movies. The ones after Degeneration definitely course-corrected with their Leon. By the very next movie, Damnation, he's making sarcastic remarks on a regular basis, and he's much, much more expressive than he was in Degeneration.
Is it common for people in America to be packing one of these while on vacation?
Sure. We've been doing it since the country was first founded.
The movies are not really important, at all, but nonetheless I think the shift is interesting, and you can almost consider the later movies like another step between Leons. Finally, when we now meet Leon in Requiem, he's more stoic than he was in RE4's remake, but also more flippant than he was in RE6. We meet him when he's in the middle of dying of Raccoon City syndrome, which probably would make one a bit more stoic than usual, but altogether really, he acts, well, familiar. They take the hardened professional concept to its eventual outcome. This Leon isn't the doubtful, tired Leon of 4's remake. Even when he's taking a punch to the gut from a tyrant while deathly ill, or fighting an unbeatable enemy, he's hardly fazed at all, and still has witty lines to say. He still carries his guilt, but he does a far better job of putting it aside and focusing on the job. As mentioned earlier, we've seen Leon get more showy as he progresses, from his fashion sense to the stylish combat moves, and Requiem takes this to a whole new level too. He's driving a Porsche, he has an overpriced watch, and fancy new finishing moves too. We've hit peak Leon. Back in RE2, Leon was hesitant to take on Ada's made-up case when she was injured, just because he wasn't a federal agent.
Ada, you said it yourself. It's a federal case. I don't
Leon,
have the authority.
Look at me.
Rookie Leon was very mindful of things like authority chains. In RE4, he got the fancy job he probably would have loved a day before the events of RE2, but by the time he does get it, it's an unwanted burden to him that he was forced into. In RE6, he's forced to fight his own superior trying to frame him. By RE9, he now happily flaunts little things like authority to investigate on his own. He's learned long ago by now of the corruption inside the systems, but the sense of justice that motivated him into law enforcement is still intact. He's made it through. He's completed the cycle. There's even a great scene in 4's remake where Leon is wallowing in self-doubt, and Ada, of all people, reminds him that he really hasn't changed. He's still the same person at his core, even if he behaves differently. And it's nice to see that that thread is carried through even into the future of Requiem. He's still Leon. Requiem shows us that 20 years later, he still basically acts like he always has. 20 years later, he's still motivated by the same things. This might not seem like a big deal, but a Leon that feels familiar is something that was unthinkable back in the days of the action trilogy. When we've seen Requiem's Leon, we can look back at some of those previous steps, and, well, they make a lot more sense than they used to. We can actually see the progression of the character from 2 to 4 to 6 to 9 without contradicting himself. At the very end of Requiem, the Raccoon City chapter is closed. Leon's disease has healed. Not only does he save the girl, he even saves the other girl, and in doing so prevents Grace from going down the same dark path that he did. We can see a weight lifted off of Leon's shoulders, and he's suddenly acting a bit more like his old self, like he did before all the grizzle and guilt. I think, most of all, Leon is happy that he finally, at long last, kind of makes sense. Thanks for joining me. When Leon makes sense, you know it must be springtime for gaming. See you next time.